elderly lady that had 3 sons, and at Christmas, they all gave her what they thought was a really nice gift. The oldest son had given her a 5,000 square foot house, completely furnished, completely paid for. All she had to do was move in. The second son had given her a complete theater, Dolby surround sound, 3,000 square foot in that house, all the video projectors and loud, nice speakers and the big theater chairs, soft plush, nice, comfortable chairs, completely paid for, didn't cost her a dime. The third son thought through it, and he had bought her a parrot, but it was a very special parrot. This parrot had completely memorized the Bible, and he could quote back scripture to the lady. She didn't have to read. He was really sharp parrot. Hard to find one like that. So after Christmas, she was sharing with the kids, and they all were excited about, Mama, what you think? The oldest son said, well, Mama, what you think of your house? Son, it's a nice house, but it's so big, all I can do is clean. I just clean house from light to dark. Every day I clean house, I clean house, I clean house. It's just too big. Second son said, Mom, what did you think about the theater room I gave you? She said, well, son, my eyesight's been bad for years. I can't see that screen. And as far as the music goes, my ears are no good. I don't have hearing aids, and I couldn't hear anything that was on the theater. And it's really of no use to me. And the third son says, well, Mom, what you think about my gift? She said, well, son, of all the gifts that was given to me, yours was the most thoughtful. Said that. I want you to know I really appreciate it. That was about the best chicken I've ever tasted. I figure we better lighten up a little bit tonight, because what I'm going to talk about has been hard. I have been trying to talk about this either on Wednesday night in Clay's class or here for most of the summer, and it's not an easy talk, and it's going to be tough to. I don't have any answers, and typically I don't have answers, but I want tonight to try to get you thinking. That's the biggest thing that I want to gain from being here tonight is don't think like I think, but think outside the box a little bit at some of the stuff we read and some of the stuff we hear. If you think I'm going to have an answer to why a young person would get cancer and die, I don't. I don't have that. But again, I do want you to think differently than normal. I think bad things have been happening to good people for somewhere around 3,500 years as far as records go. It's not new. We're not unique. We're not picked out by God, and I'm going to punish that one and that one and that one. It's kind of good to know that God's not mad with us when bad things happen. I've got many examples. You can start with Adam, Moses, David, Joseph, Job, and we could go on and on and on. None more important than Jesus. Jesus was falsely accused and killed and crucified, embarrassed. So bad things have happened for a long time to really good people. I'm going to give you 5 reasons, kind of quickly run through them that come to my mind. First reason is you may have done something wrong, and I'll try to back some of these up with biblical and some of these up with real life happenings. But Jonah was a strong man of God, and if you've heard the story about Jonah that in the belly of the whale, I can't ever tell the story without telling the story about the little girl in college that's professor was one of these know-it-all guys, and he was disputing that. He said there's no way that could have happened because he had studied the whale, and the gullet of the whale was not big enough to swallow a man whole. He would have to have been crushed, which means he would have died, and Jonah, according to your Bible, didn't die. She said, well, it is a fact because that's what the Bible says. He said, I'm telling you, it can't be a fact because it can't happen. A whale can't swallow a man whole. She said, well, I know it happened because it's in the Bible, and when I get to heaven, I'll ask Jonah. He said, well, suppose Jonah didn't go to heaven. She said, well, you ask him when you see him. You've probably heard that before, but I can't tell that story without using that one. But Jonah was a strong man of God, but he was not obedient. He was told to go to Nineveh. Now, Nineveh was a bad place. It was kind of like the old Sodom and Gomorrah. The whole town, the whole country had turned evil. They were sinning. They were living in sin. God sent him there to turn them around. He didn't go. He was afraid for his life. He was afraid he'd be embarrassed. He was afraid he'd be talked about. He was not strong and bold enough to go. Instead, he went to the port city of Joppa and paid money to sail to Tarshish. That's 180 degrees in the other direction from where Nineveh's at, where he should have gone. You know the story. A great storm blew up. The boat almost capsized. I just pick out a few things about the story. Verse 6 says, he was recognized as a man of God. The captain came to him to pray. When you're living a godly life, even if you're disobedient, there's a good chance you'll still be recognized as a man of God. It's important to be recognized. But that didn't make the storm go away. He told them eventually that it was him. First he didn't, but then they cast lots, and the lots fell on him, and he admitted, look, I've been disobedient. I'm the reason the storm's going, and you can cast me overboard and it'll go away. They didn't first cast him overboard, but eventually they said, look, that's our only hope, so they tossed him over. And that's how he got swallowed by a whale. So Jonah did wrong, and bad things happened to him. So obviously sometimes bad things can happen to us when we do wrong. Second reason, bad things can happen when someone else does wrong. You know, sad to say, but some of us could get in a car accident on the way home. A drunk driver could hit us. We're doing nothing wrong, but that can happen. Happens nearly every day. Sometimes things are just out of our control, and bad things happen because of it. I'll talk to you a little bit about Job. Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters. The first chapter of Job, verse 5 says, he would rise early and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all, in case they had sinned against the Lord. This was Job's kids. He hadn't sinned, but he was offering burnt offerings in case the kids had sinned. He didn't know that they had sinned or that they hadn't. He offered them just in case. That's a big story. That's a big deal there. Other people can cause things to go wrong in your life, but if you pray for them, you may get ahead of the problems. So even though it can be out of your control, there can be some control there if we go the extra mile, but bad things can go wrong when someone else does wrong. Number 3, bad things can happen when Satan is attacking. Again, Job was a great man of God, but he was wealthy and had all kinds of possessions and kids, and he had done no wrong, but Satan attacked him. What I want you to understand there and to really think about is God had to give Satan permission to attack him. Satan had to go and ask about, can I attack him? Can I break him? And God knew he would hold strong, but he let him do it. He opened up Job's life to Satan, and you know the story. He took his family, took his possessions, his cattle, all he had. And he stayed sick for weeks and weeks and weeks. And everybody in Job's life told him to curse God and die, but he never did. He held strong. But bad things can happen when Satan attacks us. And Satan gets way too much credit. I heard Robert Morris do a sermon on this one time about Satan. He says, some of this congregation, Satan's attacking me, Satan's attacking. He said, look, when things going good, do you give Satan the credit for it? You can't give Satan the credit for the good, and you can't give Satan credit for the bad. You're going through a trial, and it'll pass. Don't give Satan credit. Satan is under your control, not you under his control. So, but bad things can happen when Satan attacks. Number 4, bad things happen to test us. This is a fact, I'm sure. 1 Peter 4:12, beloved, do not think it strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some bad thing has happened to you. The fiery trial which is to try you, that's a test. Verse 13 says, but rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings, that when his glory is revealed, you may also be glad with exceeding joy. That means when you get through the test, when you get through the trial, and you see the reason you went through it, you should rejoice just like Christ. Abraham was tested time and time again. Greatest test, we waited 100 years to have a son, and then God told him to sacrifice him. And he nearly went through it till God stopped him. Abraham said, faith untested cannot be trusted. That's a big line. Faith untested cannot be trusted. If you've ever heard Navy SEALs speak, there's quite a few Navy SEALs that are retired that are Christian men, and they give motivational talks. You can Google it, you can find, it's really interesting talks. But while I was going through some of this stuff, I listened to one for a while there, and he said the team, and I don't know if it's 10, 20, how many is in a SEAL team, but it said the team would lay in freezing ocean temperature, just freezing water, March, February, in one spot. Waves would wash over them and go back, wash over them and go back. If one of the members flinched, sneezed, coughed, moved, the team did it again tomorrow. They're testing. That team is relying on every one of them being the same strength, the same mental fortitude. They don't whimper, they don't blink, they don't back up. And that kind of test is what you got to have to get through some of the trials they go through. So their test can be trusted. Once they pass their test, there is 100% trust on that entire team. So God may have to test our faith so that it can be trusted. Number 5, when bad things happen, God may be teaching us. I think there's a lot of truth to that too. 2 Corinthians 12:9, and he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in your weakness. Trust in God, not in your own understandings. Romans 8:28. That understanding, trust in God, not in your understanding. I'm telling you tonight to think past what you typically would think of, but know what your understandings are, know where they come from, and know God is in control. And trust not in your understanding, but believe in God through faith that he'll get you through these bad times. I'm reminded about the blind man that Jesus healed. The disciples want to know, did he sin or did his mom and daddy sin? He was blind from birth. And it was like, we're not concerned about you healing him. We're not concerned about you being glorified. We want to know who sinned. Whose fault was it? How often do we do that today? It's not about the problem. It's who caused the problem. Who's to blame? So be careful, but always understand when bad things happen, and God may be teaching us something. There may be a lesson to learn there. Quite often, most often than not, I learn from mistakes more so than I learn from my successes. It's a tough lesson, but that's where your better lessons are learned. So that's the five of the reasons that I would say bad things happen to good people. I want to turn now more toward the good people. This is one thing that really stuck out in my mind while I was reading and going over some of this stuff. But Mark 10, verse 17 and 18, the rich young ruler addressed Jesus as good teacher. He's a good teacher. What does he have to do to go to heaven? Jesus answered this way, why do you call me good? No one is good but God. So when I'm thinking bad things happen to good people, just who are these good people? Am I good people? You guys good people? If Jesus didn't consider himself to be good, I ain't got a chance. So bad things happen to good people. How good? That was something else that really opened my mind a little bit. You know, are we worthy of, even tonight, are we worthy of anything? Bad things happen to good people. Some are better than others, but it's still, that's a big statement, good people. I said earlier, Satan had to ask permission to test Job. That reminded me at the Last Supper at the table, Jesus looked in this, that's in Luke chapter 22, verse 31. Jesus said, Simon, Simon, I figured when Jesus calls your name twice, you better pay attention. He said, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat. Sound like bad things fixing to happen to good people if he's going to sift him like wheat. But again, he had to ask permission. He has asked for you. That's a big, big deal. I want to try to make you think a little deeper there as well. Verse 32 says, Jesus said, but I have prayed for you that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren. Strengthen your brethren. I missed that for years reading this. Jesus knew Peter was going to fail. He'd already told him, you're going to deny me 3 times. He knew he was going to fail. He knew he was going to come back. He was going to be the rock. Jesus told him, you're the rock that my church will be built on. And when you come back, you're going to have to strengthen your brethren. You're going to have to be the role model. You're going to have to lead them. It was a big deal that Satan didn't sift him like flour. The church would have had a different outlook. Might not have had a church. Satan was looking to destroy the church. If he could have destroyed Peter, it might have destroyed the church, because he was the rock Jesus was going to use to build the church on. Another thing to get our mind to thinking, that particular verse, I don't get into the Greek and the Hebrew and all this, but it's important to know those words have different meaning. The word that was used there was aiteo, ateo. Mr. Randy, you might help with that, but that is a more direct asking. I'm asking, pretty much demanding. I'm going to have him. That's how that Greek word was translated there. Typically, when Jesus asked, it was a much nicer way. When he asked things of God, the word was E-R-A-T-A-O, Oratio, Oratio, whatever. It was a kinder, simpler, calmer way of asking for things. You need to understand, when he asked for Peter, he was pretty much demanding, I'm going to have him. I want him. He knew what was going to happen when Peter came back. So it was important that he not get him to sift him. But it's important for us to know Satan may be asking for one of us tonight. He may be asking for your kid. He may be asking for your job. He may be asking for your marriage. And you need to be like Job, praying just in case this is going on. I've been through a lot of this myself. Early in life, didn't pay attention to it. When I look back, I can see things pretty clearly. I can see what's happened and gone. If I could see ahead of time, I'm just telling you, when I say think, don't think like I think, but start thinking outside of the box, as they say, and it could make a difference. It can keep some bad things happening to good people because we're overly prepared, or we're getting ahead of ourselves, I guess to say. Understand, God was displeased with Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham was a great man of God. He was trusted by God to the point, I think Genesis 18:17 says, God said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? He was going out to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham's nephew Lot lived there. And the angels appeared to Abraham to let him know. Abraham negotiated with God. If you don't think him and God were tight, they talked. He said, if there were 50 good people, would you still destroy it? Of course, God said, no, there's 50. And then Abraham thought, well, there ain't 50. He said, what if there were 40? If there were 40 good men, good people, would you do it? God said, no, if there's 40, I wouldn't destroy it. But he kept on, and every time Abraham would tell him what a good God you are and all this, but got down to 30 and 25 and 5, and, there were no good people in Sodom and Gomorrah. A question I'd have, were there no good people in Nineveh? Had Jonah not done what he did, would he have destroyed Nineveh? If there was an Abraham today, and again, You'll have to forgive me for things that I ask tonight or the things I say. But if we had an Abraham today, would Asheville have been destroyed, or parts of Florida? Could we intervene ahead of God and say, God, I know there's good people there. There might be 10, there might be 50, there might be 50,000. It's a question, it's a thought. It's a big thought. And I want you to see it, not necessarily for that purpose, but for your own community, your own family, your own employment. You think about, what can I do to head off bad things? They're there. There's bad things around us all the time. But anything that you can do to prepare yourself for it, or to prepare yourself to get through it, or to keep it from happening. Abraham asked God, and God would have listened. Had there been good people in Sodom and Gomorrah, I think he wouldn't have destroyed it on Abraham's behalf. That's kind of my question tonight. Could we stop some of this stuff? Could we be better people? There's none good but God, but could we be better people? Satan is alive. I don't think, in my mind, I'm not present like God is, but Job chapter 1 says God asked Satan, where had he been? He said, to and fro across the earth, walking constantly back and forth. I think it's in the New Testament. It says he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, seeking whom he may devour. He's real. He's out there. And we wrestle with principalities. That's demons and spiritual things that we can't see. If we're prayed up ahead of time, I think it's going to be better for us. We'll be stronger. These things may not happen to us quite as bad. We might dodge some bad things that happen to good people. Just pray. Just is all I can tell you. And again, as I started out tonight, I said this is going to be a really tough talk. It's hard. Been trying to do it for 2 or 3 months. Don't have answers. I don't even want to talk about it, but I think it's important to understand that Satan's out there. He may have to ask for these bad things to happen. We won't know about that till we get to the other side. But if that's the case, and we can be more like Abraham and intervene, and more like Jesus and pray for Peter that Satan wanted to sift like flour. If he wants to sift our marriage like flour, if he wants to sift our job, there's a greater God and we can call on him, and that's all we got to do. And that stuff's going on. It's all around us. And if we can open our eyes to it, again, I don't have any of the answers, but I think it's helped me to read and see and study this, and I hope it helps you to see things a little bit more like this. Not necessarily like I see them, but different than we've looked at them in the past. And again, sorry for a kind of a sad devotion tonight, but I needed it, and I hope it helps somebody else see past what they're staring at that looks terrible. I appreciate you coming again. We won't do this in December. We will do this in January. We will do wild game. If you shoot something, run over something that ain't mashed too bad, clean it, take it home with you. Don't bring it uncooked. I will cook fish, frog legs, hush puppy slaw. We will have sides. We'll have rice. But if you fix a dish, cook the dish. You come out here and cook it. Some do come out here and cook it, but please, we'll have our hands full with what we're cooking. So, but we typically have, the last 2 years we've done this, we've had over 100 men, and we've had good food, and stuff that you wouldn't think you'd eat was good food. So